Hello everybody, welcome back to another Doctor Who Classic review. Today we're reviewing the 6th Doctor, Colin Baker story, The Two Doctors. So this is the 4th episode in season 22 of the show. This is regarded as just being average from what I can see. Not many people hate it. I've seen a couple of people really dislike it, but on the most part, people just consider average, slightly above maybe. But in this video I'll be giving my thoughts on the episode and giving it a rating out of 10 at the end. So, what did I think of this story overall? I thought it was good. I thought it was enjoyable watch. I have some issues with it, which I'll get onto soon, but on the most part, I thought it was solid. So firstly, let's talk about the multi-Doctor story. So firstly, we'll come to my first issue. We'll do the negatives first. Get them out of the way with. So, it's a multi-Doctor story. Firstly, why? Why do we have it? Because a multi-Doctor story is supposed to be there for an anniversary special. This is not an anniversary special. Now, if this was at the end of the season, fine. But this feels like they're just throwing it in there because they couldn't think of anything else, so we're just going to have a multi-Doctor story. I don't see why we should, because it's the multi-Doctor story is supposed to be a treat, and when they're just throwing them in there randomly, I don't get it. Okay, as a one-off, I can tolerate it, but if they did this twice, I would have a big issue with it. But as they only did it once, I can tolerate it, kind of. But I'm glad they just didn't do this more than once, because I feel like a multi-Doctor story should be a treat, and should be not a rare thing, but just something that doesn't happen too frequently, so we don't get tired of it, if you know what I mean. So on the subject of multi-Doctor stories, the purpose of a multi-Doctor story, what is it? It's, like I said, it's a treat, and we get to have fun watching the two, or however many Doctors there are, interact with each other and bounce off each other. And there's none of that in this episode. None of that whatsoever. In the third part, we get about a 30-second clip of the 6th Doctor and the 2nd Doctor with each other. Apart from that, there's nothing. And also, I suppose, there's Colin Baker and Patrick Troughton on the same scene together, but spoilers, at this moment Troughton's Doctor is an angiogram, so that doesn't count. So there's basically no interaction between the two Doctors, which I have a massive issue with, because if there's none of that, it barely scratches a multi-Doctor story. Okay, so the other thing I want to talk about is the special effects in this story. Now, I know the budget was, let's say, not massive at this point in Classic Who. This is in 1985. The show would eventually go on to be cancelled 4 years later in 1989. And the budget wasn't huge, because this, I'm pretty sure, this is the time when Michael Graves was running the BBC. So the budget was not huge. And that really shows with the special effects. My goodness me. That first part where, I can't remember, I think this is 2nd Doctor or one of the sidecasts that gets shot. This little taser comes out. Oh! I laughed at that because it was so bad. It was awful. Now, okay, I know it's Classic Who, I can tolerate it, but it was rubbish. And the Sontaran spaceships, when they're just in the sky, no, they didn't look good. And when it's flying, ooh, Classic Who. But it is Classic Who, so that I can tolerate that, but yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the 3 parts. So for the 6th Doctor's era, a lot of the 6th Doctor's era, they decided to go for this 45-minute length part stories. They decided to have each part last 45 minutes. So if you know Classic Who, you will know that normally in the first 2 5th Doctor's era and the 7th Doctor's era, all of the parts were 20 minutes long. So normally if it's a 4-part story, it's about 90 to 100 minutes. And that works. This does not work because it's 45 minutes, and Classic Who is slower paced. It's not always it's boring, but it's slower paced. And it's the cliffhangers at the end of each part that keep you invested. Sorry, background noise. That keep you invested. And if there's 3 parts that last 45 minutes, that means there's only 2 cliffhangers to keep you invested. That ain't working. And on the subject of cliffhangers, they're not even that good. The first part, the cliffhanger for the first part is the Doctor falling over onto the little, and he's face down, and Perry going onto the ground. It's fine, but how it's resolved is them just standing back up again and moving on. Yeah. And then the cliffhanger to the second part is good, with Shockeye, one of the characters, standing over Perry, about to eat her. And how it's resolved is Perry gets up and runs off. Again, it's not resolved, it's just carried on. And that's, no, I was not the biggest fan of the cliffhangers in this thing. Okay, so let's talk about the parts individually, because that's what we do with. So the first part, boring. I know this has been mostly negative so far, but trust me, we will get on to the positives later on. So this is the first part was boring. I was not interested with any of the characters. The Sixth Doctor and Perry were getting on my nerves. We'll talk about those 2 later. But yeah, I was bored, and nothing much was going on. It was just walking around the station, dialogue that was just annoying, particularly when it was the Sixth Doctor and Perry. No. The second part picked up a little bit, but it wasn't great. It wasn't incredible. Background noise again. We're getting a new kitchen done, by the way. That's what it is. So yeah, the second part picked up a little bit. We do get a lot more information on the Sontarans in that part, but it's not amazing. I think the supporting characters did pick up a lot in the second part, but it was okay. Yeah. The third part I really enjoyed, all the way through, all 45 minutes of it. I have issues with the third part, which we'll get on to, but on the most part, I thought the third part was thoroughly enjoyable, and the characters were a lot better, and the setting was brilliant. We'll get on to that later. Okay. The cast, the main and side cast. We have touched on this a little bit, but I'll go into this in more detail right now. So I'll start with the Sixth Doctor because he is this is his era of the show, as you can see on the DVD there. And I actually really liked him. Now, in the first part, I wasn't so keen, but I think the reason why he's not one of the best regarded Doctors is Perry. But we'll talk about the Sixth Doctor for now. I thought when he's with the sidecast and he's in his, he's not in his full multicolored jacket. He's in just as this little waistcoat, which suits him much better than the multicolored coat. I wish we saw more of that, but I'm pretty sure it's only used in this episode because that suits him really well. And when he's in that, it worked. He's a good Doctor, but when he's just being awful to his companion, it just does not work. Perry is irritating. Now, Nicola Bryant gives a very good performance, but it's what she's given that I don't like. She doesn't want to be there. Why is she still travelling with the Doctor up to this point? She doesn't like it. Okay? And it's just annoying to watch when the companion's just sulking all the time. She should have left in the Twin Dilemma at the end of season 21. That would have been the perfect point for her to leave. Yes, up to that point she's only had 3 serials, but I think that would have worked really, because it would just be an awkward timing for Pete Davison to regenerate into Colin Baker, and for her to realise that, hang on, this ain't the Doctor, I'm leaving, I'm getting out of here. That would have been a great exit for her, but unfortunately, she just carries on and it's just annoying to watch. Maybe she should have had more time with Davison and left with Colin Baker going on, because then she would have had more serials. I think the only reason why she's still here is because if she left when the 5th Doctor regenerated, Nicola Bryant would have had 3 serials on Doctor Who, and that would have been a bit of a waste. But yeah, I wish we'd seen more time with Perry and Davison. That would have worked a lot better than Perry and Baker, because these two do not get along at all. Okay, the Second Doctor. Yeah. Now, I am a big fan of Patrick Troughton so far. The clips I've seen of him in his era and in the 5 Doctors as well brilliant, love him. In this, maybe it's just because he doesn't get a whole lot to do that I'm not the biggest fan, but also what he's given, I just don't really like. Firstly, he gets turned into an androgen, which just is just weird. The design of the Shokai and the second Doctor when he's turned into one of them just does not work for me at all. And Jamie, the best out of four, in my opinion. Out of the Sixth Doctor, Perry, the Second Doctor, and Jamie is the best. I love him already, and this is the first series I've seen of him. So that's working for me. Can't wait to see Tomb of the Cybermen, which is going to be the first Patrick Troughton episode I see, hopefully. Unless something makes me want to watch, I don't know, Enemy of the World or something. But yeah, the cast are good in this episode, and the supporting characters, the performances are solid but not amazing, and the character development, they're okay. There's that Jacini and Shokai. I only finished watching this on Monday, it's now Thursday, so I can't remember all the names. There's Jacini, Shokai, and Dastabi. I honestly can't remember, but there was Jacini and Shokai and Dastani, who were good. I just wasn't the biggest fan of Dastani's glasses. I thought they looked cheap. Now I know they didn't have the biggest budget again, but really they just looked like a pair of those paper things that you find in those those books that Believe It or Not books. Okay, that wasn't working for me. Alright, I think we'd better talk about the positives before I get into my negatives, before this turns into a complete rant. So the positives, I love the setting. I think the setting looked great in the second and third part. I think this is Spain where they filmed this, so that was good. And just the whole surroundings does not feel like Classic Who, but I like it. The Sixth Doctor wearing his little waistcoat, that's brilliant. I love that costume on him. Jamie's brilliant, like I've already said, and the third part was really enjoyable. So those are just the positives that I have about this thing. I'm trying to think what else. What else was there? I'm pretty sure that was it. The cliffhangers weren't great. Normally I say the cliffhangers. Oh, the music was brilliant. I love the music in this thing. Okay, final thing I have to say before I'm going to close out. The Sontarans were hideous in this thing. Now that's not me saying that I don't like classic Sontarans, because in Time Warrior, I know I haven't seen that, and in Sontaran Experiment, I know I haven't seen that either, but just the look of them, yes, brilliant. But then Invasion of Time comes along, and they look awful. No, they look, yeah. And then in this one, it's right in the front. It doesn't look great. So, yeah, the Sontarans weren't doing a great deal for me in this one. Plus, there's two of them. Another budget issue. They keep talking about this, this fleet that's coming along. Where is it? There's two Sontarans here. They do nothing. I read somewhere, a comment on YouTube said that, Robert Holmes, who wrote this episode, did actually not want the Sontarans in here, but someone said to him, yeah, we need Sontarans in here, and you can tell that you can tell he didn't want them in here because he does nothing with them. Well, I can find, I mean, maybe it's just because I'm biased for Robert Holmes, but yeah, I wasn't a big fan of Sontarans. So, what am I going to give this out of 10? Whilst I do have legitimate technical issues with this thing, like the budget and the special effects and the Perry, and what was the other thing? The Sontarans and what was it? The Doctor's not interacting at all. Those are technical issues, I think, and also the pacing in the first part. Watching this, the second and third part were really enjoyable, so I'm going to give it a 6. I was debating whether to give it slightly lower or slightly higher than Frontier in Space, but I think it would just be fair to go what I gave Frontier in Space. Ranking this, technically, this is way worse than Frontier in Space, but I think if this was the second time that I was going through Classic Who, I think this would probably go at the bottom. But as I'm just watching Classic Who for the first time, and I'm experimenting, I'm going to put it slightly higher than Frontier in Space. Even though I probably said more negatives about this thing, I honestly thoroughly enjoyed watching it. So I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10 and put it in 5th place on my Classic Who ranking. Next up for the classic reviews, it will be Remembrance of the Daleks. We are doing Sylvester McCoy for the first time, which I'm very excited to watching, because that's regarded as being probably the best Sylvester McCoy story and one of the best Dalek stories of all time. So I'm really looking forward to that one. And yeah, I suppose that's it. At the weekend, it's going to be a video essay on Russell T Davies. And I've started doing the script for that. I'm not really halfway through. I'm still on series 1. But yeah, that will be at the weekend. Might be a bit late because the script might take a bit while, so it might not be in its usual position on Sunday. Might be a bit late. But anyway, we'll see what happens. And until next time, bye for now.